All right, hey, this is Al Angelo from A Plus Racing, and I'm bringing you a video on how to get, yes, even this Miata on the front line. It belonged to my construction friends, and so, but basically they brought it to me because they thought it had a transmission problem, and it ended up that they forgot to put it in gear. But anyhow, so we got care of that, but he wanted me to do an inspection on the car, so I started looking it over, and not only does it need rear brakes, which I'll show you when we get them off, but also too, it looks like the pads aren't wearing out evenly, and when that happens, it's either the slide pins or the caliper needs to be rebuilt. So here's the deal, and we already did the other side, and they were really bad. I'm not sure about this side, but I can see it needs brakes. So on the other side, the inboard pad wore out much faster than the outboard pad. Okay, so when that happens, when you have one pad wearing out on the inside over the outside, it doesn't matter if it's the front or the rear, it's the caliper is getting stuck. Okay, the piston's getting stuck. And then if you wear out the outside pad before you wear out the inside pad, then that is that the sliders need to be lubed. Okay, so it's one or two problems. So I talked it over with the customer, and we just decided we're just going to put new rebuild calipers already on it. I don't rebuild them; they're a pain in the ass. You know, it's just I just buy them. They're like $60. No, there might be a little bit more than that. But anyhow, so I just buy them, and then I put them on the car, and then we're good to go. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to remove the caliper and replace it along with the brake pads. And I've got some Hawk Blue brake pads. So what I did so far was I took a 12 millimeter and I just cracked this bleeder screw loose because I'm going to need to get that off. All right. So I've got that crack loose. So my next step is to remove the 10 millimeter on the bottom down here. And I forgot, I got the ratchet, but I forgot to get the socket. So I'll be right back. Okay, look, I found a whole rack of sockets. All right, so I'm going to grab my 10, and I even found an electric ratchet. So I'm going to set this aside for right now. Okay, hopefully the battery's not dead. Oh, okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this lower 10 millimeter here. And I always recommend that you use a 6-point socket down here. Avoid using a 12-point wrench because it's really easy to round that bolt off. So I always use a 6-point socket. I don't want to round that off and then it's stuck on there. And believe me, we've done it many times here in the auto shop. And then it's a nightmare to get that off. Okay, so I mean, I can already see where somebody's had a 12 on there, and you can already see it's kind of already started getting rounded off. You get a close in on that, Mark? Yeah. Mark's our camera guy today since cameraman Mike decided to take a different job. Thanks, Mike. All right, so I got that. I just pull this up, slide it off. I'm going to set it here where it doesn't hang down. Okay, so I got my brake pads here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them off, and we got new ones. All right, so there's the outboard. And anytime I'm looking at the brake pad and I see that the backing plate here, the metal backing plate is thicker than the brake lining itself, it's time. And especially on the race cars, because this thing will go through that with a good driver, and these guys are actually pretty fast. I think his name, we call him Kiwi. Isn't it Kiwi, Mark? All right, he's pretty fast. He could wear through that brake pad in about a day. All right, so there's not much left on here. It was worn pretty good, but it's wore out. All right, so we'll set that one aside. And then I have the inboard, and if we look at it, I'm going to hang on to these little metal clips. We're probably going to need to reuse those. So if I look at the inboard pad, if you look, you can see that there's still plenty of meat left on the inboard pad. You can see the difference here that the inboard pad is thicker than the outboard pad. So this outboard pad used to have a line in it as well, but we've already worn through that, and so it's wearing the outside more than the inside. So as I told you earlier, that's a problem. That indicates to me that the slider has been sticking on this car. So at some point, the sliders were stuck and it wore the outside pad out before the inside pad. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the rotor off. I'm just going to set this down right here. All right, so the caliper that I got comes with the bracket. So we have a new bracket with a new slide bolt in here. These slide bolts are nothing more than an Allen right here, and I've seen these fall out before. So double check, make sure that's tight. So the caliper comes with the bracket, which is nice, especially if you got one that's, you back east people, that's all rusted up and in bad shape. So I'm going to go ahead and take a 14 millimeter, and I hope I got the 14 today. Nope, I got a 13. So I'm going to take the bracket off, and it's just held on with a couple 14s if nobody's changed the bolts out. All right, so going to take this off right here. There's a 14. I told you, in case somebody's changed the bolts out. The top one's a 14, wasn't even very tight. And somebody has changed the bottom one. Let's try a 15. I've been finding all kinds of goofy stuff on this car. Matter of fact, Mark, while I get this bottom 15 out, Mark's going to take you on a little field trip to the other side of the car. Go ahead and show him that action down there, Mark. So Mark's going to show you what I discovered over there. All right, so that's it. That's kind of a goofy setup right there with the double bolts. All right, Mark, come on back. So yeah, this has got a 15 on the bottom and a 14 on the top. Someone's changed this bottom bolt at some point, and so to a 15, which is not Mazda. I think it's the right thread. It's just, as you can tell, it's some aftermarket bolt, but it does appear to be the correct thread. So it's just not the size that we're typically used to seeing. Okay. So now they sell these calipers exchanged. So normally I would take the old ones in and then exchange it for new ones. I just had some cores laying around the house, so I already did that. So I'm going to set that off to the side. Okay, and now here's my new bracket. So we'll set it up in here. We'll thread this bolt on there like that. And this is a really easy job. You know, I know that I'm on Facebook and I see those poor guys and gals on there struggling on all this stuff, and everybody giving them different advice from all corners of the world. And actually this is really straightforward. So I think if I don't skip any steps and you watch me do the whole thing, you're going to find out that all the stuff working on this car is super easy. All right. And we got a 14 up there. Somebody put a goofy 15 down here. Okay, of course that's not tight enough. So we're going to go ahead and tighten it down a little tighter. Don't hesitate to really torque on that, okay? I'm sure it probably gets torqued for around 40 pounds. Oop, I just dropped our caliper. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so the bracket's on. So the next step is to go ahead and put the rotor back on. It just slides on like that. Sometimes it helps, so I'm going to show you this trick. I normally don't do this, but I'm used to fighting the rotor to stay straight while I'm hanging the pads. But if you just put the lug nut on there, then now the rotor's straight and you won't have very much problems. Okay, so get this back up there, and I've got these little clips right here. All right, so these are the little anti-rattle springs. You got to use these. Okay, I know that the pad will fit on here without it. Okay, I've seen that. But what I've also seen happen, and I've seen it going on the front too, is this thing will wear out to the point where it can slide out, especially on the fronts, not so much the rear. So I always make sure that I put those clips in there, and they're readily available at any parts store. All right, so hang on tight right here. I got some grease over here. Let me grab it. All right, so I just got a regular can of wheel bearing grease here. Now on the top one, it goes like this, okay? But if I let it go, it's just going to fall off. So what I do is I put a little grease on the inside of it, and then I lubricate the area where the pad actually rides. So right there and right there, okay? And I put the grease on the inside so that when I put it here, it'll stick like that. That's a subscriber tip right there. All right, I've seen people just fight that for hours, and all you gotta do is put a little grease on there. All right, so the bottom one, gravity's my friend, so I'm gonna put a little grease where the pad rides. I just stick it on there, and it just sits there, okay, like that. All right, there we go. All right, Mark got in, zoomed in. All right, so here we go. I'm using Hawk Blue pads. I really like Hawk Blue pads. I've been using them for decades. I know Hawk Blue should be like giving me free pads as much as I promote them. I never had problems with it. Once I find something I don't have a problem with and I like it, I just stick with it. So they don't warp my rotors. I mean, they wear the rotor out, but they all do. But they last a fairly long time. They've got a really good threshold braking. They're the same from lot number to lot number. I always feel the same. I don't feel one more grippy than the other. And so I really like them. And so I do promote them, even though they're not sponsoring me or anything like that. And everybody I talk to, I try to talk them into using Hawk Blues. They're a good pad, and they don't have any problem with them. So I want to make sure I put it in right. So here's my brake lining here, and you can see the huge difference between the amount of pad that was worn out. Okay, so you know, these are pretty aggressive pads. They've got a lot of metallic in them. You don't really have to turn the rotor. If it was a street car, I'd turn the rotor, and you don't use an aggressive pad. This is a pretty aggressive pad with a lot of metallic in it, so I don't need to turn the rotor. So I'm going to put this on there. It goes just like that. Okay, so make sure the brake lining material is pointed towards the rotor. You know, Mark and I can't tell you how many times we've seen it where somebody says, it grinds pretty bad, and I just did brakes. And we look, and they've got something that looks like that. Okay, so yeah, that's the wrong way. All right, so make sure that, you know, you're getting this brake pad on there in the right direction like that. Okay, so that's on there. All right, so the next step is to take our caliper, we don't need that, all right, and put it on. All right, so I'm going to put a little grease on this upper slider, and you don't want to use a lot, because it'll get cakey, and then it'll get sticky. So, and then my new caliper slides on, and being that the piston is all the way back, I don't have to move the adjustment just yet. Okay, and so now I got it in there. Mark's going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see what I got. I'm going to wipe the grease off my hands, because I'm trying not to get everything full of grease here. I'm trying to be somewhat clean. Well, I just grease rag right there. Okay. So the next step is to put the lower slide pin in. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, put a little grease on there, like that. And then it goes down here. And I kind of feel it go into the threads down there. I just felt it go in. See if I can get a better light. So I just felt it go in down there, okay? And then I like to try to start it by hand because I don't want to cross thread it. So I'm going to go ahead and start it a little bit by hand. And then once I think I got it started, then I'll take my ratchet, and it's a 10 mil, and again I'm using a 6-point, and then see if I can go ahead and get it going. If it gets stuck right away, stop. You're cross threading it. Okay, so it's going in. I didn't cross thread it. And I'm going to snug this baby down. There it is. And that's it. Don't go crazy on that, because what ends up happening is it makes it really hard to get out the next time, and you could round it off. All right, so just kind of snug in a little bit more. All right, so that's on. So now what I got left to do is I need to hook up the brake line, and then this is for the emergency brake. But somebody took the emergency brake setup off. I don't do that. I know some people do. A lot of people do. I don't. I leave it on there. It's annoying. At our garage at Thunder Hill, it's on a slight hill. We can't leave the cars running out on the garage unless we have some piece of wood under the tire or something. So it's just annoying. I'm going to go ahead and take off this banjo bolt here, because this is where we're going to put the brake line. And it's going to come with 2 copper washers. So you see here, there's 2 copper washers here. So I'm going to leave one on the banjo like that. And then I'm going to set the other one aside because I'm going to need that. All right? Okay. And then if you remember right, we already kind of cracked this loose with the 12 mil. So I need to be fast with this, okay, because this brake fluid is going to be running out. So I'm removing the old caliper. There's the hose. It's got an extra copper washer there. I'll put this on there and set it on the floor to drain later on. Oh, just set that there. Okay, so I've got the banjo fitting. Of course, it's leaking brake fluid. So I've got my copper washer on the new banjo. I stick it on there. Then I stick the copper washer on the bottom, so we're making a little sandwich there. Then, without twisting the line all up, I get it lined up. Oops. Oops. And then I drop everything on the floor, because that's what I do. All right. Yeah, hold tight. All right. So many times I can get down that low, and I just wasted it on a washer. All right. Put this back on. Okay, try to get my fingers in a better position. All right, so here we are. And I'm going to start it by hand. Get it started. I don't want to cross thread it. Bad things would happen. Okay, so we're started. That looks like a 10 mil. So I got a 10 millimeter already on here. Oh, 11. Okay. Yeah. The one that came off was a 12. All right. And then I got to be really cautious about where the final tightening is, because I'll show you here in a second. Let me get close to being done, and then I'll show you why. Okay, this. I don't want this to be way out here where it could rub against a tire, okay? So I want to bring it in so it's not in the way of anything, but it's definitely not going to be close to the rim. And then this is very fine thread. It's a hollow banjo bolt with 2 copper washers. So, you're not torquing it like a lug nut. So that's about it. That's all I'm going with that. All right. Okay. So the next step is to adjust it. So right now we got a ton of play in here in the caliper. Okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. But we need to get rid of some of that. So in the back of the caliper, if I show you the old one, right here, okay, underneath that bolt is the adjustment for the brakes. So I need to take that bolt out, and then there will be an Allen behind that, a 4 millimeter Allen that I will need to use in order to adjust the brakes. So I just crack that loose. And a lot of times they have a copper washer on this. So I can feel the copper washer. I'm trying to hang on to it so it doesn't fall on the ground. All right. Hey, if you take this out and brake fluid runs out, your caliper's no good. Okay, so I need the Allen that goes in there, and I left it on the other side because I already did the other side. So let me go over here and see where it's at. You hang tight over there. Oh, is this it? Okay, I got it. All right. What I do on my Allens is when I find the right size Allen, which is 4 millimeter, I grind some notches in it like that. All right, so that when it's sitting in a drawer with a whole bunch of Allens, I can just look over and see which one it is. All right, so I'm basically going to stick it where that bolt came out, and I'm going to tighten it up, going righty-tighty, until the whole brake system locks up. Okay, right there. So see how I cannot, it's stuck now, all right? Now I'm going to back the Allen out. Can you get a good shot of that, Mark? I'm going to back that Allen 1/2 turn, okay? So I'm going to go 1/2 turn like that. I'm going to put my finger where the Allen goes into the caliper because I don't want to pull all the gearing guts out with my Allen wrench. And I slide the Allen wrench out so that I don't pull the little drive gear out with my Allen. And it's adjusted. So now I tightened it up all the way. I backed it up backed it off a half a turn, and that's the proper adjustment. You want to make sure that if you have the emergency brake on, that you do that with the emergency brake off. Otherwise, your adjustment's going to be all out of whack. Okay, so I put the little dust bolt back on. It's a 14. I'm going to just snug it. I'm not going to go crazy torquing it. I'm just snugging it down. Watch this. That's it. That was it. It was just a little snug. Okay? Okay. And that's it. So you just replace the caliper, the brake pad, you lube all the hardware, and now we need to bleed it. So the next step is to bleed it, and we'll bring you that video another time. Hey, thanks for watching my A+ Racing channel. I hope you've subscribed, and I hope you like it. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. That way I know I'm on the right track of giving you the right videos. All right? And I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.